Hey everybody, I'm Rich G.
And I'm BJ Flagg, and this is episode 356, The Art of Negotiation, Getting What You Want. Rich, Rich, you know
If
I love this.
if you own a business, you need to know negotiation. So,
Yes.
welcome to the best small business show. We're your go-to resource for business success strategies.
Negotiation is a critical skill to small business owners, and mastering it can mean the difference between surviving and thriving.
Absolutely. So, we're going to just jump right in. We've got five areas that we'd like to talk about today. The first area
Yes.
is understanding the basics of negotiation because some
Right.
of you are new to it and or maybe you want to polish up your negotiation skills.
Yes.
So,
Yes.
the definition and the importance of negotiation. Negotiation is a process of reaching an agreement through discussion and compromise. It's so important to focus on this sentence. It's an
I know.
agreement. It's not all you, and it's
Right.
discussion and compromise. So
It's two-sided. It's two-sided, Rich. Oh
absolutely,
my
it's
goodness.
essential for securing favorable terms with your suppliers, with your clients, and also your partners. So you're going to be
Mhm.
using negotiation a lot in your small business.
For sure. And the mindset of successful negotiation, this is also something that you've got to get in your head. Approach negotiation with a win-win mindset. And we've talked about this before. You have got to focus on building long-term relationships, not just a short-term quick gain. No, no. You want this to be a long-term trust relationship. So this, in doing this, it's not like all holes barred, I want to win everything.
Yeah.
Yeah.
In fact, I've always told my clients that negotiation is a win-win and it's a lose-lose, where you're going to win some stuff, they're going to win some stuff, and you're also going to lose some stuff. Be prepared to not
Mhm.
get exactly what you want. So
Right.
you both have to win because when you both win, that's a good negotiation. Or when you both
Mhm.
lose, that's a good negotiation because then each person gets something. So
Yeah, yeah. And it feels right to both people.
there's some key elements of a good negotiation. Some of them are you need to prepare. You need to prepare beforehand and be ready to figure out what figures you're going to be asking for, what figures you're going to negotiate on, what figures you're going to settle on. Um, Build up your communication skills.
Hmm.
Understand it's not only your what comes out of your mouth, it's your body language, it's your facial expressions, it's a
Yep.
lot of things. Communication builds in a lot. Also, mutual respect. When you're negotiating, sometimes people go into negotiation thinking, "Oh, I'm just going to rip their eyes out." And no, no,
No,
you have to
no.
respect the person because they're going to provide something. They're either going to provide money or services to you. And once
Mhm.
you're finished with the negotiation, you don't want them to hate you. You want to respect each other. And the most important part of a good negotiation is flexibility. You need to be flexible. That's why, like when I tell clients when they're negotiating salary with their new employer, that they throw out a figure, then they negotiate, and then they have a figure that they'll settle on, which is lower than what they throw out. So there's flexibility built into the whole negotiation process.
Right. And even Rich, that's such a good point because even if you're negotiating salary, you're also negotiating benefits.
Yeah.
So to understand from the get-go, you are a team player. That is huge. So
Yes,
flexibility, right?
exactly,
Right?
exactly. Because once you leave that negotiation, that person's your boss. And if you take them through the ringer, they're not going to like you. So,
Yeah, yeah. Number two is prepare thoroughly. And we say this in so many times, in so many ways, but you need to research and information gather. You have to get all your information in there and do your homework before you get going. You got to understand the market. You got to know your counterparts. You have to identify their needs and their constraints. You got to go into this with all of that advanced knowledge so that you sound extremely prepared, and it actually will make the negotiation go faster
yeah.
because they kind of automatically go, wow.
Yeah, when you prepare and you get all the information, it also helps with your mindset. Gets rid of the anxiety because you're
Yeah.
prepared. You
Yeah.
kind of know what your market worth is out there. You kind of know how much the product you're negotiating for is. So, and that leads us into set clear objectives. Know what you want to achieve and the minimum acceptable outcome. Like I said, when people are negotiating salary, know what you want to achieve. Throw out a figure. I always say throw out a figure that's going to get a deep intake of breath on the other side.
Other
They
side.
go, ooh, oh boy, oh that's crazy. Oh my goodness.
Oh,
And
yeah, yeah,
say,
yeah.
well, what do you think is fair? And then
Right,
you negotiate. That's all.
right.
But
And if
have,
they're if
yeah.
you're if they're in, I'm so sorry, if they're in
Oh,
human resources, right? They're used to negotiating. So even though they do that
yeah,
when they're talking, that's all a prep script. They, if
yeah,
you had said 20,000 less, 40,000 less, they still would have made that exact same noise.
yeah.
So just realize it's part
There
of the
are
game.
there are lots of Oscar-winning performances out there, and
Exactly.
they almost act like sometimes they'll act like you're stealing money from their kids' college fund. They're like,
I
"Oh my
know.
God, oh,"
Oh
and
God,
it's
I can't.
crazy. But when you're setting your clear objectives, have a list of priorities ranked by importance, and that's important when you're negotiating for certain things. Have the most important things up front and negotiate on those first and then make your way down. And there's a certain demarcation line where you go, you know what? I think we're all set. Everything else looks good. And don't
Right.
be a jerk. That's the other thing. Don't
I
be a jerk.
know. Oh my gosh. You know what I wanted to bring up? Develop a best alternative to negotiation agreement. So a BATNA. You want to develop this because in your head, you have to feel good.
Yeah,
In their head, they've got to feel good. So you identify any of your fallback options if the negotiations don't go as planned.
yeah,
So, how do I say that? You know how you're working down a list? Rich just mentioned that list. You need a list to the right and to the left because you need to know, okay, if I didn't get this, I can get that. If I didn't
yeah.
get this, I get that. So you're really identifying all of those back and forth. This will give you that leverage and the confidence of knowing, okay, this is a good time. I can mention this.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
It's so important. Well, the third area that we want to talk about with negotiation is you need to build rapport and trust. That's really important. So, number one is establish a connection. Begin with small talk to break the ice and find common ground because you're going to be working with that person. They're either selling you things, you're either buying things, you're going to work for them, they're going to pay you salary. In some negotiation, you need to find common ground and small talk to break the ice. So you get to know the
Mhm.
person. Also, show genuine interest in the other party. Ask them about it because you might find something that you never realized before. I did not know that. Oh my
Yeah,
goodness.
right. And it might change. You know, we're talking about the list. It might change where you are on the list.
Yes.
And you might be a need to take that nugget of information, do a little quick thinking, and be able to kind of enter that in. They may mention a benefit
Yeah,
that you didn't know you had. And so you don't want to push so hard on the other part because that benefit is fantastic.
yeah,
Um, the other thing is active listening. Listen more than you speak. That's right. Don't be yourself. No, be yourself. But you are definitely need to get into listening, understand their needs and their concerns, and lean in. Lean in.
yeah. So, also use reflective listening to show you're engaged and understand their perspective. You need to ask questions like, "That's interesting. Tell me more," or you need to show you're engaged and understand their perspective by asking them other questions, by drilling down and saying, "Well, why is that so expensive? Tell me why. I'd like to find out why." Because if a client asks me about my fees, I'll happily tell them, why certain things are more expensive than others. Because there are other services I offer that most coaches don't. So that's why, and I encourage people to ask me questions when we're
Yeah.
negotiating. So.
Yeah, that's so big, definitely.
Well,
Um,
also demonstrate credibility and reliability. Be honest and transparent about your intentions and your limitations. We're too often afraid to say, I can't afford that. That's too expensive. I want your product. Is there something else we can do so I can afford your product? Because right now I can't pay that much. They might have payment terms. They might give you a
yeah,
discount. They might say instead of, 6 sessions, we'll give you 5 sessions or something. And also follow through on the promises to build trust over time. Because if you're negotiating your services, you need to follow through on every single thing you agreed upon. So take notes, and at the end of the negotiations, go through and say, I just want to review what we've just talked about so we're on the same page.
yeah. And Rich, don't you feel that by just demonstrating that credibility, you're continuing to grow? They obviously were interested in you. You were interested in them.
Yes.
Just building that another layer to your trust relationship is so huge. And they love the fact you can negotiate. Like
Yeah,
let's say you were going after a sales job. The guy's going to love that you're a good negotiator. That's
exactly.
totally, it's a plus for him to get to see you in action,
Yeah,
right? But really, what he also needs to see is that you're just so reliable, how
exactly.
you go down your list. So it's awesome. It's awesome. Number four is communicate effectively. Shocker, BJ brings up communication, but clear and concise messaging is just so incredibly important. You need to articulate your points clearly and avoid jargon. Do not circle back. That's all I'm telling you. Right, Rich?
Yeah, jargon is the one that really gets me, especially when you're talking to people in their industry, like insurance or finance or tech.
Yes.
They'll start using jargon, and you go, I don't know what you're talking about. Be honest. Say, I have no idea what you're talking about.
Right, right. And you know what? Just use simple, straightforward language. That's all people are asking for. Yes, maybe at the end you throw in a little jargon and say, "Well, we're gonna, split, do da da da." Fine, that's fine. But really, when you're going back and forth, you want consensus. So the better to understand is important.
Also, use persuasive techniques. Highlight the mutual benefits and frame your proposals in a positive light. Show them the end result. Show them that this is a journey, but this is what you're looking for: a washer that cleans.
Yeah, and Stephen Covey,
Yeah.
right? Begin with the end in mind.
Yes.
Absolutely. You got to be able to do that.
Yeah, and use stories and examples to illustrate your points. That's because, again, you're trying to get to a level set. That's what negotiation is. So use stories to get people to understand and communicate effectively.
Yeah. And, Rich and I, whenever we're doing a podcast, we're on video too. And nonverbal communication is probably the most important thing that we could do. We try to maintain eye contact, we use very confident body language, and we're aware of the cultural differences of the nonverbal cues. We're aware of the people around us. We're in a very fantastic, diverse community. Be aware, be aware. And that is probably one of the most important things you can do.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, BJ and I are constantly pointing at each other or raising our hand like, oh, I have something to add. So I'll raise my hand and she'll
Yeah,
acknowledge, and then I'll point back to her, move on. So
yeah,
we'll
yeah.
do that. So
Hmm.
number five, and the last one, is be flexible and creative. I know we mentioned flexibility before, but we can't say it enough. Explore multiple options sometimes. Don't lock yourself into a single solution. That's the death of any negotiation. When you just power forward and this is what I want. It's like you need to be flexible and have multiple options. Be open to alternative ways to meet your objectives.
And Rich, one of the most important things is to let yourself, um, when you see you're coming up on something and they're really holding on the point, right?
Yeah.
And what would be the way that you would work with that, Rich? Like
Yeah,
what would
what
be the
you
way?
need to do is what I call opening up your heart. Just say, like, Mary, what do you really want here? Okay, please
Yeah,
tell me, because we're negotiating right now. It seems like you're hiding something. You're not telling me something. Tell me exactly what you want, and we'll figure it out. And
yeah.
too often, people come into negotiations with this hard edge, this hidden
Hmm.
area. And sometimes you have to do that, but when you're hitting an impasse and you're just not agreeing on things, one party has to open up their heart and, encourage a kind of like a brainstorming session to find a creative solution, to
Yeah,
move forward.
yeah. That is so excellent. The other thing to consider is compromise and trade-offs. Again, piece of paper that you've written, you've got your things in the middle, you got stuff on the right and the left. Be prepared to give up something
Yeah.
of lesser importance to you to gain something of greater value. Look at the big picture. Don't go into the minutia. Know that you might have to give up a little something here and there. And also just use trade-offs to move the negotiation forward. As we talked about just earlier, you're going to sense when you've hit a little bit of a wall.
Yeah.
And this is where a trade-off is good, to be able to bring it into the conversation, show your flexibility, and have them wake up again. Have them wake up again. And that usually works out nicely.
Perfect. And here's one of the most important parts of negotiation is know when to walk away. Recognize the signs that an agreement isn't feasible. If you're
Right.
sitting there and it's like when you're trying to buy a car and they're not moving on price at all, know when to walk away. Protect your interests by being willing to end negotiations if necessary.
Right.
This is huge, and I know both books we're going to be talking about have huge chapters on know when to walk away.
Right. Right. And what's so funny about these books is that I feel like they're written, um, they are anticipating that you've read many business books
Yes.
and now you're reading this. This is a 201 book. Let me give you an example. Getting to Yes, negotiating agreement without giving in. Robert Fisher, William Murray, and Bruce Patton. This is such a good book. It's the seminal work on negotiation, and it introduces a concept of principled negotiation. And the authors present a really straightforward, universally, applicable method to negotiation, both in your personal and your business life, which is great.
Yeah.
And I kind of feel like the book has really practical strategies and real life examples. I'm all about those. And it makes it a really essential read to really improve your negotiation skills.
Yeah, my book this week is Never Split the Difference and Negotiating as If Your Life Depended on It by Chris Voss. Like BJ said, these are two books that I wish I read when I first started my business, and I didn't read them
Yes.
until I was into my business. So this is a gripping guide on negotiation written by Chris Voss. He's a former FBI hostage negotiator.
I want to read
So
it again. It is
yeah,
so good.
it is really a good book. He shares the techniques and strategies he used in high stakes negotiations with terrorists, kidnappers, and criminals, like most of the vendors and people we work with. No, I'm just kidding. But it applies them to the business world and everyday life. So
Yeah.
you're going to get his engaging storytelling and practical advice at the same time. And it makes
Yeah.
this book a powerful tool for mastering the art of negotiation in any context. So these two books, Getting to Yes and Never Split the Difference, go
Woo.
out and buy them today.
Oh my gosh, I love them. Well, that's a wrap. We invite you to share this episode on LinkedIn, Instagram, X, and TikTok with the hashtag the best small business show.
And thanks for tuning in. If this episode has been valuable to you, take advantage of future insights. Subscribe, follow, and share it with other budding entrepreneurs who could benefit from it. Your support helps us reach more people and make a more significant impact.
To learn more and to talk to our team, contact me, BJ Flagg at newrenew.com for all your brand marketing needs, and follow my podcast partner, Rich G, at richg.com if you need a business coach to help you grow your business.
And thanks to our editor and producer, Richard Scalzo. Have an unbelievable week, and we'll catch you later.